Do you believe that someone can just disappear in the middle of the snow after a car accident without leaving any trace, as if it had been erased from reality? This is not a made-up story. It is not an urban legend, nor a fiction series script. It is a real case, documented, investigated, and yet inexplicable. The kind of mystery that even the most experienced detectives can't comprehend. One of those disappearances that defy logic, science, and perhaps something beyond the natural. Imagine this: a promising young college student with her future ahead of her, who, after strange behavior and a sequence of inexplicable decisions, drives to a remote road in the middle of a snowstorm. He crashes the car, refuses help, and in a few minutes, disappear. No witnesses, no signs of a struggle, no footprints in the snow. Not even the nose of trained dogs was able to tell where she went. Maura Murray has not been seen since that night, and what scares the most in this case is not just the absence of answers. It is the excess of coincidences, silences, broken clues, and behaviors that make no sense. It's the details, the little things that no one can fit in. Theories ranging from a planned escape to abduction, homicide, kidnapping, and even supernatural phenomena. Why lie about the death of a relative to skip school? Why fill the trunk with clothes and liquor and disappear without telling anyone? Why send a last email to your boyfriend in a cold and calculated tone, as if something is about to happen, or had it already been decided? This story goes beyond a simple disappearance. It involves deserted roads, unreturned calls, surveillance cameras that capture nothing, obsessive blogs, letters never delivered, theories about love triangles, covert abuse, and even a bizarre video posted by an anonymous man laughing alone in the dark. Coincidence? Provocation? Or a silent confession? What if Maura wasn't alone on that road? What if someone, or something, was waiting for her? The Murray case has become an obsession for investigators, journalists, and the true crime community. But no matter how much they dig, each answer seems to open up more questions. And there are those who say that certain truths, they don't want to be discovered. That there are stories that are beyond human control. That there are forces, circumstances, or people who operate in the shadows, and when they enter the scene, they leave only one thing behind: fear. Here on the channel, we dive deep into this kind of mystery. Unsolved cases, true horror stories, crimes with a dark twist, the ones that stay in your head for days or nights, the ones that make you look twice before going out on your own. And this, the Maura Murray case, is one of the most disturbing on record. If you think you've seen it all, be prepared to question everything. You are about to enter a territory where logic and reality unravel, where fear is palpable, and where every extra minute can be the thread that separates truth from the abyss. So take a deep breath, turn off the lights, and join me on this journey, because what happened to Maura Murray, perhaps it should never have been discovered. What happened to Maura Murray in the hours leading up to her disappearance sounds like a carefully crafted movie script, but with the aggravating factor that there is no ending, no explanation, only emptiness, silence, and questions that no one has been able to answer in nearly 2 decades. It was February 2004. Winter in Massachusetts was already proving merciless, covering roads with ice and thick snow. Maura, only 21 years old, was restless. Her routine seemed to follow a dark course, as if she herself knew something was about to happen. And maybe somehow she knew. That week, Maura told the university that she would be absent for 7 days. He claimed that a close relative had died, which was a lie. That in itself would have been a red flag, but added to the rest of his actions, it paints a picture of something far more disturbing. She packed her bags, withdrew almost all the money from her bank account, about $280, and bought liquor. But the contents of her suitcase drew attention. In addition to casual clothes and hygiene products, there were school books, makeup, gym clothes, nothing that indicated a desperate escape or a criminal plan. It was as if it were leaving, but where, why, and for how long? Shortly before leaving campus, Maura still had time to call her boyfriend and leave a voicemail. The tone of the recording, according to him, was calm but cold, without emotion, no signs of urgency. It was as if she was saying goodbye, without wanting to say it with all the letters. That same afternoon, around 4:30 p.m., she called a condo rental company in Bartlett, New Hampshire, a mountainous region she used to visit with her family on vacation. The place was isolated, surrounded by dense forests, snow-covered trails, and a quiet energy that, for those who believe, could very well hide secrets that nature does not want to be discovered. In the evening, around 7:27 p.m., police received a call. A car had collided with a tree on Route 112 near the village of Haverhill. The vehicle was a black Saturn, 1996, registered in Maura's name. The collision did not seem serious. The engine was still running when bus driver Butch Atwood passed by and stopped to offer help. He reported that Maura was alone, apparently unharmed, but visibly shaken. He said that she refused any help and insisted that he not call the police. But there was a problem. On that remote stretch of road, there was no cell phone signal. If Maura changed her mind, she wouldn't be able to make a call. Atwood, suspicious, decided to act on his own. He returned home, which was less than 100 meters from the scene of the accident, and made the call to the police. When the officers arrived just a few minutes later, the car was empty, locked. No signs of violence, no footprints around, even with the snow covering everything, no clue as to where she might have gone. That's where the story stops being a case of common disappearance. Because nothing, absolutely nothing in the place made sense. Neither for the investigators, nor for the family, nor for the hundreds of people who, in the following years, would delve into this mystery in search of answers. On the passenger seat, there was an open wine box with splashes of a reddish liquid on the roof and doors of the car. A bottle of soda with a strong smell of alcohol was partially empty. The airbag had been deployed, but there was no blood. There were no signs that Maura was injured. In the back of the vehicle, her belongings were apparently intact, with the exception of her wallet, cell phone, and some personal items, which had disappeared along with her. An even more intriguing detail was discovered in the car's exhaust pipe. A cloth was stuffed inside, partially blocking the smoke exit. According to Maura's father, this was an improvised technique that he had suggested to his daughter to prevent the police from stopping her because of the excessive smoke emitted by the old engine. But for some theorists, this detail could indicate attempted sabotage or even staging a breakdown, something carefully orchestrated to justify abandoning the car in that specific location. With the unexplained disappearance, the authorities began a search. But to everyone's amazement, it was surprisingly limited. Sniffer dogs followed Maura's trail to about 30 meters of the road, and then nothing. The smell just disappeared. No footprint, no items left behind. Helicopters, rescue workers, and even civilian volunteers scoured forests, frozen streams, abandoned houses and fields around the route. Nothing. As if it had evaporated. What followed was a succession of theories, speculations, and parallel investigation, and each theory seemed more disturbing than the last. Some believe that Maura planned her escape, that everything was meticulously executed. The lie to the teachers, the cash withdrawal, the purchase of drinks, the call to the condominium, all with the aim of disappearing and starting a new life. But if that was the plan, why do it on a road in the middle of nowhere? In extreme weather conditions, alone, without enough money, and without even communicating with someone you trust. Others believe she was the victim of a kidnapping, that someone was watching her, that someone, maybe a resident of the area, maybe someone who followed her, found her there, vulnerable, and acted quickly. There are those who believe that Maura was caught in a moment of panic, fled the scene of the accident for fear of the police, and ended up getting lost in the forest, dying of hypothermia. But this hypothesis also raises questions. Why did no one find his body, clothes, objects, or any physical trace, even after intense searches? And then come the darker theories. Those that talk about the involvement of third parties, blackmail, secrets that Maura could keep and that made her a target. Theories that cite a possible abusive relationship with her then-boyfriend, Bill Rausch, who would later be involved in public accusations of violent behavior. The police never considered him a suspect, but his name appeared more than once in uncomfortable contexts. One of the most intriguing elements came in 2012, when a YouTube channel called 112 Dirtbag, a direct reference to the route where Maura disappeared, posted a video of a man laughing maniacally in a dark room. No subtitles, no context, just that disturbing laugh. The video went viral among true crime forums, and many came to believe that the perpetrator could be involved in the disappearance or mocking the family's pain. The video has been removed. The man was never identified. And it doesn't stop there. During an inspection of Maura's dormitory, investigators found all her things packed in boxes as if she were moving. On top of the boxes, a letter addressed to her boyfriend, a letter that talked about the problems of the relationship, about internal confusions, about pain. But the family claimed to be unaware of any crisis. They believed that Maura was engaged, happy, at peace. Once again, the truth seemed to have multiple faces. Even after years, clues kept emerging. Sightings in Montreal, mysterious photos on social networks, anonymous emails sent to journalists with specific geographic coordinates. One of those emails, signed with a name that was an anagram of Maura Murray, said only, "Stop looking." And next to it were the coordinates of a secluded spot on Mount Cardigan, a place surrounded by legends, perilous trails, and oppressive silence. Volunteers even excavated the site. The police carried out searches with penetrating radar and sniffer dogs. But again, nothing. As if someone, or something, were making sure that the truth was never found. And this is where we get into really dark territory. Because when all logical paths are exhausted, what remains is what reason cannot explain. Coincidence or not, Maura was not the only one to disappear in that region. A month after her disappearance, another young woman, Brianna Maitland, disappeared under similar circumstances. His car was found crashed into an abandoned house with belongings left inside. No sign of her since. 2 young women, 2 disappearances, the same region, the same kind of scene, and no official connection admitted by the police. But is it really a coincidence? Now imagine living with these questions every day. Imagine being Maura's father, mother, sister, waking up every morning with the hope that the phone will ring, that a clue will finally appear. Imagine being trapped in this cycle of uncertainty, mystery, and fear. Because the most terrifying of all terrors is not knowing. And the more you look at this case, the more it falls apart in your hands. Every detail hides a possibility. Each silence hides a truth. And in the meantime, the forest is still there. The road is still there. The snow keeps falling, as if it were hiding more than just tire tracks. Because maybe Maura Murray didn't just disappear. Maybe she was taken. Maybe she ran away from something, or to something. Maybe she found what she was looking for, or what he feared. But one thing is certain, what happened on that freezing night is not just a disappearance. It is an enigma that still pulsates, that still haunts, that still watches us from the shadows. And now that you're here, maybe you're already feeling it. The feeling that something is wrong, something that doesn't close, something that hides between the lines of this story. And that's exactly it. That things start to get even stranger. The case of Maura Murray now plunges into a territory where reality is beginning to unravel. When all the objective facts aren't enough to explain what happened, theories emerge, and with them, an even denser fog than the one that blanketed Route 112 the night it disappeared. None of them were proven, but they all seem possible, and some are disturbingly convincing. The first theory that emerged was that of the planned escape. Maura would have masterminded everything. The lie about the death of her relative, the cash withdrawal, the cold email to her boyfriend, the car loaded with clothes, books, hygiene products, and alcoholic beverages. A rehearsed, meticulous, script. Something worthy of someone trying to erase their past and start over from scratch. But how to start over? Alone? Without support? In the middle of winter, in a remote area, without transportation? With only a few bucks and no guarantee of safety? What would lead a promising young woman with a structured background and a bright future to simply give up on her own life without leaving any clues, notes, or even a cry for help? The second theory is even darker: kidnapping. For many, Maura was caught at the exact moment when she was most vulnerable, emotionally shaken, isolated, on a dark road in the middle of nowhere. Perhaps someone followed her, someone who had been watching her for some time, someone who knew exactly where she would be and when she would be alone. It may have been a stranger, or worse, someone close, someone familiar with the surroundings, with the forest, with the absence of a signal, someone who used darkness as a curtain and snow as an ally. This theory, as terrifying as it is, gains traction every year as no new clues appear. Because to disappear like that, it requires skill, precision, or monstrosity. But the mystery deepens when a subtle detail begins to gain attention. What if Maura was pregnant? What if she was trying to escape not just a stifling routine, but a secret she couldn't tell anyone? An investigative writer, James Renner, spent years obsessing over this theory. He believes that Maura was in an abusive relationship with her boyfriend Bill, and that when he discovered a pregnancy, he made the decision to escape. Renner claims to have received anonymous emails, encrypted messages, and even coordinates that would indicate the place where she could be hiding or buried. But what drew the most attention was a message sent from a profile with the name Ray Romao, a perfect anagram of Maura Murray. The content was straightforward: stop looking. This in itself would be unsettling, but added to the geographics, coordinates of an isolated point on the Desolation Trail in Mount Cardigan, the thing takes on almost ritualistic contours. Perhaps the most emotionally charged theory is that of the love triangle. Rumors indicate that Maura had a parallel relationship with an assistant coach on the university's track team, an older man involved with the outdoor club, the same one who often organized trips to a cabin in the White Mountains, near where she was last seen. According to unofficial investigations, this man would have said in a private interview that Maura had mentioned in an enigmatic tone that she thought of disappearing. Coincidence? Alert? Or confession? But the most disturbing thing is to realize how all these theories, as conflicting as they are with each other, fit together in the chaos of this disappearance like pieces of an inverted puzzle. The more you assemble, the less sense it makes. And then come the details, the small but unbearably sinister things. Why was the car locked? If Maura crashed the car and left in a panic, why would she lock the vehicle? With what key if she took it with her? Why are there no clear signs of where it has gone, even with fresh snow everywhere? No footprint, no abandoned objects. It is as if the forest had swallowed her alive. And that cloth stuck in the exhaust? Maura's father said he suggested this as an improvised solution to disguise the smoke from the engine and avoid problems with the police. But this raises an uncomfortable question. Is Maura trying to avoid being stopped because she was intoxicated? Or was he trying to simulate a breakdown to abandon the car there intentionally? The bottle of soda with a strong smell of alcohol, the traces of wine in the car, the purchase of drinks minutes before the trip. All this indicates that perhaps she was altered. But this would not explain his complete lack of logic in refusing for help, refusing to hitchhike, and leaving without leaving marks. Drinking too. Much doesn't make someone disappear without a trace. Not like that. And then comes the most surreal element of this whole story, the 112 dirtbag video. Published in 2012, 8 years after Maura's disappearance, the video shows an anonymous man in a dark room. He doesn't say a word, just laughed. A long, disturbing laugh that looks more like an echo of madness than a provocation. But the name of the canal was a perverse clue. 112, the same road where Maura disappeared. Dirtbag, a term her father used to refer to the possible kidnapper in an interview. Coincidence? Or an encrypted confession? The video was taken down. The man was never identified. No official investigation has been made. But those who watch never forget the sound of that laughter. A laugh that seems to mock suffering, searching, and pain. Meanwhile, the internet exploded in forums, theories, and parallel searches. Maura's disappearance has become one of the most discussed cases in the American true crime community. Ordinary people began to investigate, to cross-reference data, to look for evidence on maps, satellite images, in forgotten police files. Some have become obsessed. Others gave up along the way. But everyone agrees on one point. This is not a common case. And the more you dig, the more bizarre it gets. Because there's something about the energy of the case that seems to resist answers, as if the truth is constantly being covered up, by nature, by chance, or by someone. In 2019, police got permission to excavate a property along Route 112. They used penetration radars, sniffer dogs, dug meters deep into a suspicious basement. There were signs of disturbed soil. There was a smell detected by the dogs. But, once again, nothing was found. Not a bone, no piece of clothing, no biological trace, only the sepulchral silence of that forest, as if she knew she was being watched. But the details don't stop. If you search for Maura Murray today, you'll find even more layers to this maze. And yes, anonymous witness, years after the event, claimed to have seen a young woman walking on foot, several kilometers after the accident site. The description matched Maura's, but the trail has cooled down. No one was able to verify the veracity of the information. The alleged witness disappeared from the forums and never spoke publicly about the case again. And then comes the question that to date no one has been able to answer. How can someone completely disappear in the United States, in the middle of the 21st century, in a place where the police response time was only 10 minutes, without leaving a single trace? One of the most discussed and feared possibilities is that Maura was the victim of a predator, a serial killer active in the region, someone who knew not only the geography, but the patterns of searches. Someone who knew how to act quickly, in silence, and was never caught again. A hypothesis that gains even more strength when connected to other cases of the time, such as that of Brianna Maitland, a 17-year-old girl who disappeared under almost identical circumstances. His car was also found abandoned. There were also personal items intact inside. There were also no signs of struggle or footprints. And to this day, she was also not found. 2 disappearances, the same modus operandi, the same geographical area, and no official connection admitted. But if you've been watching this far, tell me, Do you believe in coincidences? There are those who say that the Route 112 region holds more than trails and trees. Some longtime residents claim that the area has always had a strange energy. Many avoid walking around at night. Others report hearing sounds coming from the forest, footsteps, whispers, laughter. Supernatural theories began to emerge, especially among those most sensitive to the unexplainable. Some believe that Maura has entered a dead center zone, a region where time and space are distorted, where disappearances happen without logic, where human presence is annulled by something that science still cannot explain. You can laugh at that. You can call it exaggeration. But when all answers fail, sometimes the impossible becomes the only logical path. What if this is the case with Maura? Have you ever heard of the hotspot theory? Places around the world where mass disappearances occur without explanation. Forests, lakes, mountains, places with pattern, with repetition, in pain. Many believe that the stretch where Maura disappeared is one of these points. An area where something, human or not, chooses who can leave and who will never be seen again. Now I want to hear from you. Which of these theories seems more plausible? Can you believe Maura ran away? That she was kidnapped? That something supernatural is behind all this? Comment below with the word missing if you think she is still alive. Or write 112 mystery if you believe there's something much bigger being covered up. And if you've made it this far, get ready, because the next part of this story will mess with your head even more, and perhaps with your perception of reality. More than 2 decades have passed since that cold, silent night on Route 112. The road, as empty today as it was that night, still carries the same mystery, the same unanswered questions, the same ghosts that hover over the trees and over the collective consciousness of an entire country that, even after so long, still wonders, what happened to Maura Murray? During all these years, intense searches, meticulous excavations, special units, sniffer dogs, and even high-tech soil sensors have been summoned. And nothing was enough to bring Maura back. No bones, no clothes, no biological traces, not even a hair that could serve as a clue. A deep silence, as if time itself had decided to hide the answers. The police, pressured by family members, journalists, and the growing online community of amateur investigators, changed hands several times. New lines of investigation have been opened. Discussion forums, parallel databases, interactive timelines were created. But as much as the case evolved digitally, in the real world, it remained at a standstill. Static, cold. Maura Murray's name has become synonymous with unexplained disappearance. And over time, his image was reinterpreted by different eyes. To some, she was a young woman on the run in despair. For others, a victim of chance, caught by forces beyond comprehension. For a few, she was an accomplice in her own disappearance. But these versions do not change the essential. Maura has disappeared. And no one, not the police, not the family, not the thousands of onlookers who obsessively analyze every detail of the case, has been able to say how or why. Route 112 has become a symbol, a geographical point of interest for real hunters and also for lovers of the occult. Some claim that the road has something different, a dense, almost alive energy. Local stories tell of inexplicable sounds, figures among the trees, cars that break down for no reason, and people who swear they saw a woman walking barefoot in the middle of the night with a blank stare and silent footsteps. The description, of course, always refers to Maura, but none of these stories have been proven. Still, they persist, like echoes of what happened there. And as much as the police try to rationalize, the details remain illogical. The letter left for her boyfriend but never sent. The boxes. In the room as if she were moving. The cryptic messages. The link to MapQuest looking for directions to Vermont. The choice of destination. An isolated, cold place without previous contact with anyone. All of this paints a picture that cannot be fitted into a single scenario. Each element contradicts another. Nothing fits perfectly. And perhaps this is the scariest thing. Have you ever thought about the possibility that this case will not have a solution because perhaps it was never about concrete facts? Perhaps the Maura Murray case has become, over time, something bigger than her. In a dark mirror of our insecurities, of our failures as a society, of our desperate need for explanations that comfort, even if false. There are those who say that the silence of the forest that night was filled with something that should not be there, and that Maura, when entering the road, crossed an invisible limit, a threshold between the world we know and the one we prefer to ignore. A world where disappearances have no reason, where people fade away without explanation, where fear is a tangible presence. There are many reports of people who were in the region of Route 112 and returned with disconcerting stories, cameras that stopped working, GPS that showed impossible coordinates, feeling of being watched, and always the same comment: there's something wrong in that place, but no one can say exactly what. The investigations followed their bureaucratic course. Files were filled out, reports closed with more questions than answers. The family, exhausted, began to lose faith in the authorities. Maura's father, especially, never gave up, but his pleas for more action, more commitment, often fell on deaf ears. He accused the police of negligence, of having treated the case with disdain in the first 36 crucial hours, and rightly so. After all, how many disappearances receive a real criminal investigation right from the start? How many lives could have been saved if the system acted urgently? Over the years, false leads, discarded suspects, and even outlandish theories involving trafficking networks, secret cults, military experiments, and paranormal phenomena have emerged. Yes, you read that right. There are people who believe that Maura was the target of something much bigger, something that will never be revealed, something that involves secrets that cannot be said. And this, as much as it sounds like fiction, should not be completely discarded. After all, how many cases do you know that were explained only decades later, when secret documents were revealed? How many victims have been silenced by stories that seemed too absurd to be real? Some say Maura is alive, living under a new identity in some remote place, that she was helped by a protection network, that his disappearance was, in fact, a ransom. But it also raises another nagging question. Why did she never contact her family? Not a letter, not even an anonymous message, nothing. Others believe she took her own life that night, that seized by a deep despair, she got lost in the forest and never returned. But again, where is the body? Where are the signs? Not even wild animals can erase everything so perfectly. And if they had, at least some biological trace should have been found. But no, not even that. And this is where Maura's case becomes an almost mythical enigma. She has become the embodiment of all our modern fears: the absence, the powerlessness, the failure of the system, the silence of nature in the face of human pain. Every detail of the case is like a piece that never fits, a puzzle made not to be solved. And maybe that's why so many people still talk about it. Because Maura doesn't just represent a missing young woman, it represents the failure of logic, the failure of justice, the failure of reason in the face of the inexplicable. That's why the case continues to be explored in documentaries, series, podcasts, blogs, and videos like this one. Because he is like an open wound that never heals. A mystery that forces us to face the possibility that not everything can be explained, and that sometimes evil, it just happens. Now, with all you know, with all the pieces of this macabre puzzle scattered before you, I want you to think carefully. Which of these versions feels more real to you? Do you believe Maura is still alive? Can you believe she ran away? That she was kidnapped? Who died in that forest? Or that something much darker and unspeakable is behind all this? If you've made it this far, comment on the word lost if you think she's no longer with us, or silence in the snow if you believe she's still alive somewhere, waiting to be found. These comments help more people find this video, and more than that, they help us keep Maura's memory alive, not as a number in a cold statistic, but as someone who still matters, even after all this time. And if you want more stories like this, more real cases that defy logic, more unexplained disappearances, dark theories and mysteries that keep you up at night, then you are in the right place. This channel was created for people like you, who don't accept easy answers, who want to go deeper, who believe that the truth can be where no one dares to look, because here the fear is real. And these stories also.